Welcome and welcome to my house. My name's Hamish Anderson. I'm a trained sommelier, wine judge and all-round wine enthusiast, and it's an absolute pleasure to have Susy here as well.
Thank you, Hamish. Lovely to be in your home. I'm Susy Atkins. I'm a wine writer, broadcaster and a columnist for the Telegraph. And we're going to be your hosts as we take you through lots and lots of wine tips as part of the Telegraph Wine Cellar Accelerated Masterclass. Now, we've had lots of questions from you come in and we're going to try and answer as many of them as possible in the next hour.
Thank you. We're going to be looking at wine service. We're going to be doing some swirling. We're going to be talking a little bit about decanting, chilling wine, and just generally trying to get through as much wine stuff as we can in the next hour.
Now, lots of you will have got the wines in that we suggested for this evening. So if you have, this is the time to open them, get them ready. But if you haven't, perhaps pour a glass of something completely different. You'll learn lots and lots of info, lots of wine tips either way, won't they?
Absolutely. I have three basic wine glasses in my house. One for white wine, one which I predominantly use for red wine, and the third glass is what I like to call my special glass. So the first glass, white wine glass, you'll see quite thin-sided, really just a great all-round glass to use for white wine. Often put sparkling wine in this as well. All three of the glasses have this nice shape to them, so you're able to give them a little swirl. And so that for me is a kind of perfect all-round white wine glass. This is a red wine glass. I like something with a slightly bigger bowl for red wine. I'm able to pour 2 or 3 centimetres of wine in there, probably comes up to about here. You're then able to give it a good swirl, and you've also got a nice amount of surface area for the red wine to breathe in, so it can breathe in the glass. And the last glass I like to call my sort of special glass, or it's a Friday or Saturday night glass. And there's no good reason why wine should taste better out of this glass. It just does to me because it's got a lovely feel to it. Very thin bowl and design, and it's just got a lovely thin stem that it just feels and elevates the experience for me. Now, you're in my home, so you're subject to my prejudices, I'm afraid.
Okay.
So we're going to talk, before we pour any wine, we're going to talk a little bit about wine glasses.
Yeah.
These are my favourite 2 wine glasses that I use a lot. I have probably one more, but how many different types of styles or shapes do you have in your house?
Well, lots. I'm not very, very organised about my wine glasses, not as much as you with that size and that size. I also have champagne flutes, importantly. Not everybody likes them, but I do love the tall champagne flutes for all sparkling wine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a flute as well, although funnily enough, I think it's interesting how sort of things evolve over our wine life because, there's much more of a sort of trend and fashion, certainly in restaurants, and we do it in some of our restaurants now to serve sparkling wine and great champagne.
There is.
In this type of style of glass.
It is totally acceptable.
It's absolutely fine now, exactly. And I increasingly, maybe I'm just lazy and I can't get to the top shelf and get the champagne flute out, but I increasingly really enjoy drinking good sparkling wine out of these glasses as well.
I know what you mean. Yeah. The only thing I can't stand is glasses that are too small.
Yes.
I can't bear those little tiny, what were they called, schooners?
Or
liqueur.
Paris goblets as well.
Oh, and Paris goblets. No, lovely big bold glasses with tall stems. This will do for me.
I think for me, just the most important thing is just that shape to enable you to do some swirling, which we'll do in a minute, and just really accentuate the flavours in the glass.
So a thin glass, which is I think it's a nicer texture on the lips. It sounds like a minor thing, but we can be serious about that. I think it's thinner glass than perhaps some glasses. And a lovely tall stem, so that you hold it there. You don't warm it up with your horrible, I'm speaking for myself, horrible sweaty hands. And actually obscure the view of it. It's harder to swirl up here. It's harder to see it. And yes, there's the hand cream hand all over the glass. So always here. Wine pros will even swirl water glasses by the stem, won't they? We forget it's not wine.
No, you're quite right. And maybe just before we pour some wine, the last thing, because we were talking about it earlier, just the dishwasher and cleaning the glasses.
Yeah.
And I think these I find are quite good for me because I know I can't put them in the dishwasher because they're going to get smashed.
Oh, they're really posh, are they?
And so I need to, wash them by hand, which I think means you get off all the soap residue and it's much easier to do. Whereas sometimes I think if your dishwasher's not quite on form and behaving a bit badly, you can just end up with a bit of rinse aid on it, which is really not good for wine.
But the thing is, rinse with very hot water because any soap left, any residue left in it will kill the wine, particularly fizz.
Absolutely. Right,
okay.
Let's get on to some wine.
Let's actually pour some.
And I know this is one of the wines that some of the readers have got as well.
That's right. I've chosen this one.
I know.
This is the Stump Jump Riesling from Australia. Let's use this as our guinea pig to do some swirling
Absolutely.
and some spitting. So there we go. Not too much because, I'm looking at pubs here. Because pubs now, the large glasses of wine, they'll pour them right near the brim. And I just don't think I'm not being stingy here. I want little, but often. But you want that space, don't you? Maybe a bit more than that sometimes. But you want the space to be able to swirl. And you're not spilling it over the top. And it's not heating up too much before you finish it.
No, absolutely. I think that heating up point's a really good one as well in hot weather. And when you're going to tell us more about the style of wine, I know in a minute. But this style particularly you want to keep quite fresh.
Yeah.
Now, I saw you do a little swirl there. When we do one in unison in the air, but people always, as you say, we get used to doing it and we swirl our water. But if you're sort of just swirling for the first time, I'd say put your glass on a hard surface, pretend that the stem is a pencil or a pen or whatever, and just pretend you're just drawing little circles.
Good tip. Great tip.
And then you get it up in the air.
And what you're doing is you're releasing the aroma. I always think it's interesting to smell a wine when it's still in a glass, then swirl it, go back in, and so much more aroma. You're whooshing it up into the air, non-scientific term. No. But I mean, you will just release all that lovely fragrance, and this is a very aromatic wine.
No, absolutely. And the science of it is obvious. I mean, you are putting more wine on the edges of the glasses, therefore more surface area to evaporate, and it just really, it makes a big difference. And the other point, I think, which is particularly for red wine, we're going to taste a red later, but you're also aerating the wine and bringing oxygen into it, so just helping the wine kind of open up a bit.
Soften it, open it up.
It's
part of the wine's appeal.
Yeah.
You're not just checking to make sure there's nothing wrong with it, you're also enjoying it. No. And aroma gets overlooked too often, I think. So swirl and sniff before diving in. And then when I taste a wine, I'm sure you do too, slosh it round my mouth, which is the same principle in a way, isn't it? It's opening it up to all the different parts of your mouth that will pick up the various characteristics, bitter, acidic, sweet, dry, whatever. If you just knock it back without it touching the sides, you just don't get that sense of the complexity and the fullness of the wine.
No, absolutely. And I think those quite important, those first two. And I think going back to your point about smell, I mean, just think about smell in our wider life as well. It informs so much of what when you're making your mind up on something. If something smells great, you're immediately sort of predisposed towards it.
Yeah,
very much the same for wine as well, I think. This is an absolute cracker, isn't it?
I love this. I mean, it's just that succulence, that mouth-watering note. I mean, that's the finish. That's the last bit of it. Yeah. But obviously, the appearance of it, the aroma, and then the first flavours are just gorgeous citrus fruit. It's like you dug your fingers into a kind of bowl of citrus fruit and picked up the fruit to smell it. Bit of green apple in there too. Yeah. Now, this is Aussie Riesling, and I think Riesling is not pronounced Riesling. It's still got a bit of a bad name with some people, and I think that's a shame. It's a great, great, great variety. And although the most famous ones are probably still from Germany and Alsace, the Aussies do a great line in Riesling, and it's like German Riesling but with a suntan, with all those fruit flavours blasted up.
No, I really agree, and I think that the flavours you picked out, like lime and lime juice, and for me, you got quite a lot of blossom in here as well.
A bit floral,
which again is quite a classic Riesling thing. But that sort of lime and citrus to me,
grove,
really marks out Aussie Riesling, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of got a heightened, brightly fruity streak to it, and then that acidity. But this is not entirely dry. It's not sweet. No. I'm sure you'll agree, but it's just off dry, and so that little honeyed note just keeps that acidity from being too tart. It's a gorgeous balance.
Absolutely, and it's almost like you can think of it in the sort of food sense as well. It's like, you're squeezing lemon on something which is quite rich. Yeah. And this is the same kind of thing.
It's kind of cutting through.
The acid playing with the sugar, and one without the other wouldn't work.
And the winemaker's job is to get that balance right. Yeah. And with Riesling, it can be difficult because Riesling can be very acidic and it can turn out very sweet. Yeah. I think this is perfect. It's 10.5% alcohol, so it's on the lighter side. Yeah. And, talk about versatile with food. Yeah. I would have this maybe with spiced fish dishes, maybe a green Thai curry, something like that. Yeah. What do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think also, I mean, not this because I think it's a slightly lighter style of Riesling, but a Riesling is just such a versatile, great food wine as well. I like those slightly more full-bodied Rieslings, which again you get from Australia or Germany, Alsace, you've already talked about, with white meat, which we often think think of meat as being, we've got to choose a red wine. But, if you go to Alsace, a lot of the dishes around there are based around pork, and you drink these wonderful Rieslings with it.
I think you're absolutely right. I would not pair this with beef or lamb, personally, unless it was a very spicy chili beef dish. Yeah, spicy beef maybe, not roast beef, but I would with roast pork. I mean, roast pork and applesauce tastes appley, so it stands to reason. Very versatile. Also, quiches. some cheesy, eggy dishes.
Not
Very,
all
very
that.
good with this too.
That's great.
Yeah, Riesling's are good brunch time wines. They kind of cut through those brunchy.
It's almost
eggs,
breakfast at
eggs
10.5%, isn't it?
Indeed, very innocent. So yeah, I mean, not all Aussie wines are big and strong and powerful. This is very elegant indeed, very refreshing.
Yeah, you talked about you used a sort of what I call a technical wine term halfway through that, which was finish, and I think which is that length it leaves in your mouth, isn't it? Which I think this is really a good example of, because it's almost kind of, for me, reverberating. It's kind of, the acid is there making my mouth water, and then all these lovely flavours.
So the finish is what impression you're left with at the end.
Yes,
isn't it?
And a long finish is generally a good thing. And
and this goes on and on, very, very, very succulent
very
and tangy.
Wine.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, that Riesling being, underappreciated, the point of that also is it's then undervalued. I mean, these wines are great value, I think.
They're good value, absolutely. And the Australians have actually been masters of Riesling for a long time. Germans emigrated to Australia 19th century and took Riesling vines. So when people talk about Shiraz and Cabernet and Chardonnay from Australia, there's also Riesling, and it's probably the most elegant style of wine that's made in that country.
Yeah. No, well, cheers. Absolutely delicious.
Glad you like it.
Hi, so I'm going to show you how to open a bottle of sparkling wine. The first thing you need to do with a bottle of sparkling wine is to make sure it's well chilled. This has just come out of the fridge, you can see. It's got some nice condensation on it. And the reason we want it well chilled is because warm sparkling wine will have a greater pressure. So you've got a greater problem potentially with the cork coming out, and also then the wine overflowing and coming out of the bottle. So get it well chilled, which is of course how we want to drink it. So the first thing you're going to do is take off the foil. You can potentially see from this bottle, this has got a really nice little easy bit of foil to remove there. Oh no, see, they don't always work as well as you should do. Just get this off. It is important to get rid of that foil, you can then see the cork and the cage really easily. Sometimes they don't have quite a good mechanism to get rid of the foil. You could use a little knife that you have from your wine opener just to get rid of it, but really quite important, I think, to get that very easy to see. You can do this a number of different ways. You can either hold it. Remember, this is a bottle that is under pressure, so you do not want at any point to be pointing that cork towards yourself once you've got this cage removed. There's a lot of pressure in here. The cork will come out, and there are a few dangerous things in wine, but a flying cork getting in your eye is one of them. So as I said, you can either do it if you were on the move like this at a 45-degree angle, pointing it away from you, and remove the cage. I'm actually prefer to do it when I'm in a kitchen home setting like this for even more safety, and just kind of ease. I put the bottle on the ground, always keeping my thumb over the top, and then open the cage. Give it a good twist. And then just loosen it up there. You'll see just bending those bits of metals. I don't remove the cage. It's much easier not to remove the cage. You hold on to it. And then, again, 45 degrees angle, keeping your thumb over the cork and a firm grasp on the cork. Twist the bottle, not the cork. And then you'll see it slowly gets to the point where you're kind of exerting a bit of pressure to pull. And then it will slowly start to come. When I can feel now, I've nearly got the cork out. Depending on what you want to do here. So if you want to make a bit of a bang, you can do that. The faster you pull it out, the bigger the bang you'll have. Otherwise, you just slowly ease the cork to the side as it's coming out, and that will have that much softer kind of psh that's coming out. If you want to have a bit of a festive bang, you'd pull it out a little bit more quickly. But then you need to be really confident that the bottle is chilled, and again, it's not been shaken up at all as well. Because again, if you shake it, like anything that is fizzy, you're going to have a lot more pressure, and then much more likely that the wine is going to come flowing out. Now, glassware, I think this is quite an interesting thing, because certainly in my time as a sommelier, what we serve sparkling wine in within our restaurant environment has really kind of evolved. These two glasses here, just going to put the bottle down for a second, are the traditional ones. We've got a traditional champagne flute here, probably even more old-fashioned, a champagne coupe. I'll dispense with the champagne coupe first, because I think that's almost the worst of the four glasses that I'm going to show you. The reason being is you've got a large surface area there, so the fizz has a much greater surface area to dissipate from, and you'll find that whatever sparkling wine you put in there is going to go flatter, quicker. This more traditional champagne flute is a good thing. And a lot of us have these in our houses and it's fine. But I'm going to show you two glasses that I prefer. Pull these over here. This is what I call a bit of a more modern champagne flute. And you'll see compared to this glass here, it is shaped a little bit more like a wine glass. So there's a little bit of a kind of bowl to it. And that enables you to basically give the wine a little bit of a swirl, but also it treats the wine a little bit, it treats the sparkling wine a little bit more like a wine. So you're able to smell it and it captures all the flavours and aromas in the glass. So if you want a champagne flute, that's my kind of preferred method. At home, I actually use this glass a lot, which is I drink white wine out of and sparkling wine out of, because again, it's giving that surface areas of the wine. I'm able to treat it a little bit more like a white wine and give it a swirl and smell it and just give the wine an air. And I think it's particularly important when if you have quite a smart or a fancy bottle of sparkling wine, maybe some vintage champagne, or someone's given you a good bottle of, we're going to try Cava in a minute, but something with a bit more weight and texture that really needs a little bit of air to kind of show its best. This is the kind of glass I like to serve it in. So I'll just go back to this glass here just to show you. We quite often use pouring sparkling wine, certainly in our restaurants and in events environment in a kind of sort of volume way. And so if you have a lot of people and you've got 10 glasses to pour and everyone's arriving all at once, a good little tip, keep the glass at 45 degrees. That means the wine is not going to fizz up so much. Just pour a little bit in like that, just to kind of prime the glass. And you can leave that for kind of 10, 15 minutes when your guests are about to arrive. When the fizz has gone down, as you'll see, it will go down in a second. You can then come back to that glass with a nicely chilled bottle of champagne. This is said as a Cava, and you can go again. And it'll be much, much easier and quicker now to pour, almost like a white wine because you've kind of primed the glass. That kind of glass, I've probably filled it up a little bit too full there. But ideally, you're going to pour that to just that kind of level there. And that enables, again, this style of glass to act a little bit like a wine glass. I'm not going to give it too big a swirl in case it goes over the top. But then, you can see that you're able to get some air into that glass, smell it, and really, as I say, treat it and appreciate it a little bit more like a fine white wine that really many sparkling wines are. I think, we should think of sparkling wine, great sparkling wine, as a great white wine that happens to have bubbles in it. Another tip, it's a cool day today, but I think, we all like our sparkling wines at quite a cool temperature. So, don't pour too much into the glass. I think something topped up more regularly rather than probably what I've done in that first glass and pour a little bit too much. But, when I'm drinking sparkling wine at home, I'm just putting a little dash in like that. And again, you can see now I can really treat that like a white wine and really do the wine justice by giving a swirl, smelling it. And this style, which you can almost see from the colour of this, is quite a rich, powerful style of Cava and really, really benefits from that kind of extra air and kind of room in the glass. So there we have it, opening a bottle of sparkling wine and the glassware to serve it in.
So we've got our first question from our viewers. Now, my husband insists on pulling the cork to let a wine breathe before his friends come to dinner. What does this achieve?
Well, the short answer is not very much. If you think of the conversation we were having earlier about swirling wine and getting oxygen to wine and exposure, if you're just pulling the cork out of a bottle and you've got a very small amount of surface area there,
exactly,
not much is going to happen. If you leave it there for a few days, not great, but to let it breathe beforehand, really not much good.
To let it breathe, meaning to open up the flavours and aromas, aerate it, basically. Get the liquid out of the bottle.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a bit of decanting now and show you how to decant it and in just kind of the process that I go through, because I do think it is a valuable thing to open your wine prior to you wanting to serve it, because particularly if you don't know the wine, it's quite a good thing to open it an hour or two beforehand, and then you can decide whether to decant it and see what it's like and sort of get an impression of it. So I'm going to grab a bottle over here.
And this is particularly with red wines, certain ports, fortified wines as well. I know some people decant their white wines. I personally don't. Do you?
I do decant some white wines, yes. And I have my sort of favourite little white wine decanter that can sit in the fridge as well.
Oh, that's good.
And I mean, not many, to be honest. Maybe like sort of 4 or 5%. But I think some of those bigger, richer.
Maybe the most full-bodied whites. Could do with it.
I've got a thing for sort of Northern Rhone whites and things like that, which I love decanting.
White burgundy sometimes. I'll give you that. Okay, so cork. Now my white had a lovely screw cap, which made life a lot easier. Look, I just did this.
I know. I wouldn't be having to do all this. But I mean, on a serious note, that's something that's completely changed over the last just couple of decades, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Both the acceptance of screw cap and I think the understanding of the performance of it as people realise what a good closure.
And certainly you don't have to worry about cork taint. If you haven't got a cork.
No, absolutely.
And on a picnic. Just saying.
And I don't think also for a style of wine like that, which is so about the kind of freshness and purity, it's almost we're getting maybe a bit geeky here, but for me the annoying thing with corks is quite often if you open 10 bottles of wine, they don't all taste the same.
I think for the most delicate whites and rosés in particular, I tend to plump for screw cap because even a tiny bit of cork taint will show up. But I do understand with serious reds that you're going to age. Certainly, people sometimes prefer a cork, don't they? Because there's a little bit of exchange of air, which helps the wine evolve.
No, I'd agree. I think if you ask lots of different winemakers, you're going to get lots of different answers. But then certainly the jury's out a little bit more red. But I think for those styles, screw cap.
I'm a fan.
Massively as well. So I'm gonna open a bottle of wine now. I just brought out both of the things that I have sitting in my drawer. There are, of course, 1,000 different things you can open wine with, and I just am afraid I like the humble.
There are some very expensive things. I'm with you. Don't need to spend more than a tenner.
You don't need to be, and this is an expensive waiter's friend, and it's a tenner. You can get one for a fiver. I mean, I've got this as well because I find it quite useful. You're always going to know if you use one of these foil cutters that it's actually going to come off. In a reasonably
not
clean,
break your finger,
not break your finger and cut yourself. I mean, these are great, but you do find after a while that the knife tends to go a bit blunt on them. And so I have a foil cutter as well. And this is if you're going to get one of these and you've not used one of these before, do get one with the kind of
the two-step. So you've got a ridge here, and then you've got another ridge there.
And it's particularly good for, particularly some fancier wines that have a much longer cork, because you can go all the way in like that, and you see there I can't actually get the bottom of the corkscrew, but I got my first step there. I can just
it's also it's better with crumbly corks,
old cork, big cork.
These work well because you've got 2 goes at it.
I mean, clearly I drink lots of old wine with really long corks in my house, but there we go.
Well done.
Super easy to get out. We always give it a bit of sniff. It's a bit like, I always think sniffing the cork is a bit like us swirling the water glass. It's something we would always do in the wine trade. I do it with plastic corks as well.
I don't sniff the screw cap.
You don't know? I know. It's just kind of it's sort of second nature. But I mean, I do think on a serious note, you can tell sometimes if you get a really corky wine.
I agree. You can sometimes, but you can smell a cork and it's fine, and the wine could still not be right. So you've got to go straight to the liquid.
You've got to go straight to the liquid. And as I say, I mean, I'm just going to pour a little bit of this because I do think this, the original question was that my husband pulls the cork on a wine, letting it breathe. But I do think it's really valuable. As I say, if you don't know the wine, open it an hour and a half before you kind of want to drink it. You can always leave it in the bottle if you think that it doesn't need decanting. But just by giving it a little taste, first of all, it gives you a little idea of whether you're going to like it or not.
Whether it's going to go with the dinner you've cooked.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like sort of moment of truth, isn't it?
Lovely, yeah.
And this is just it's one of the Telegraph Cellar wines. I think it's one of your recommendations as well.
It is. I think it's one of our best value wines. I think it's top quality for the price.
No, I'd agree.
It's a bang for the buck.
But it's a young Cabernet Sauvignon, 2022 Cabernet Sauvignon, a grape that often can be a little, well, not burly, but it can have some tannin to it and weight to it. And to me, this is really, really, and you have to drink that out of the bottle, but it's got a lot of fruit to it. And I just think a bit of air of that might bring out some of the complexity of it. In an
lovely aroma and decanting.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a beautiful decanter. I love its little lip on it there. But I think it's worth saying if people don't have a posh decanter, just put it in a clean glass jug. Just get it out of the bottle. The minute it comes out of the bottle, you start to aerate it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to decant. I mean, I think the other point to mention, which we're not going to do today, is, again, we were talking about old wine, but you're really decanting for 2 reasons. Firstly, to aerate the wine, which is a real benefit for young wine. So you're giving it air. And secondly, when you have a wine, particularly if it's not been filtered very much, or generally an older wine, which actually has sediment in it, that if you just pour it from the bottle, by the time you get down to the end, it's all sludgy and cloudy. So that I do tend to do over a sort of bright light or, the traditional
I know what you mean. It's a rare type of wine. I don't think people need to worry about that too much unless they've got very
absolutely
old.
not. No.
And port can be like that. But this is not going to throw a sediment. So what we're doing primarily is getting it out of the bottle to open up the aromas. I also happen to think decanters look nice on a dinner table.
No, I couldn't agree more.
And so use those accessories at Christmas and when friends come round.
Because we know it's super young, we don't really have to worry about thinking there's going to be loads of sludge in the bottom. We can pour it all in there.
Sludge.
And then we swirl everything. So I always swirl this decanter. It's smelling delicious. And already, I think, just starting to kind of, sort of mellow out a bit.
So how long, if you say your friends were arriving here, friends like me for dinner, how long before you were serving the wine with your delicious lamb or beef would you do that?
I think a young wine like that's an hour and a half.
Okay.
I tend to open the wine, say, 2 hours beforehand because as we were discussing earlier, it really is, if you leave it there for an hour open, it's not going to make much difference. I think the big thing, particularly for reds, is tannin, and I think if you get a young wine and it's quite tannic, it can be a bit bitter, and people really don't like that, and so that giving it air really helps to soften mellows those younger tannins, which can be a bit too much, I think.
Yeah.
So
good.
hour and a half, 2 hours. But equally, I don't, it's all a bit of an experiment. There's no hard and fast rules, as we know. It's almost wine by wine, I think.
Yeah, but it's a lovely decanter, and it looks nicer like that.
Yeah, great.
Well done.
Right, let me get this out of the way. I'll just put that over there. And I can see that you've got another reader's question. Help, I've been invited to dinner with wine-loving friends. What can I take that's within my £20 budget?
I mean, £20 for a bottle of wine should get you something pretty good, and it does. But when you're trying to impress people are connoisseurs of wine, it gets trickier, doesn't it? My go-to solution, and it's a generalisation, is to avoid the really classic wine regions, Bordeaux, Burgundy. You won't impress a wine geek with an under 20 quid bottle of red Bordeaux or red Burgundy or white Burgundy. Definitely not Burgundy. And I'd say that goes for something like Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, Champagne as well. So avoid those real sort of flagship classical wine regions and go to places that are much less well known and perhaps buy wines made out of less well known grape varieties and try and wow the connoisseurs with your amazing insider knowledge instead of trying to compete with them on the classical wine front.
And do you have it? I mean, where would you be going to? Italy, or would you be going somewhere completely different?
I think bits of Italy are a great idea, but I'd avoid Piedmont, for example, and Chianti, because then you're back in the same classical wine region problem. I think at the moment northwest Spain is really interesting, and you can pick up some wines made in much lesser known regions with much lesser known grape varieties, and present them to people. Say, here is my wonderful Mencia from Bayerzo, and make sure you've mugged up on what that means, and hopefully you're introducing the connoisseurs to something different, and they can keep their very expensive red Bordeaux.
Well, hopefully they get it out at the same time.
Well, hopefully they will then try and wow you back.
And what about if you take, I don't know, take some of the classic grape varieties that make these fine wines? I mean, we talked about Burgundy earlier, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. There are some great examples of those around the world which can fit that budget. So where would you be going?
I mean, Pinot Noir is a really interesting grape because it is often very, very expensive wherever it's from. I like New Zealand Pinot, Australian Pinot. What about you? New World Pinot Noir, could you impress people with that?
No, absolutely. I think I'm in New Zealand, I would echo. I'm partly biased because I'm a New Zealand citizen. But I think, there you've got the regions like Otago, which are a bit more sort of mature, and you're not probably going to get something great for 20 quid. So I'm probably more looking at Marlborough, where I think there's some lovely Pinot coming out of at the moment. I'm in South Africa. I'm really into South African wine at the moment.
South Africa is great value all round,
People always ask me, what are you into at the moment? And I say, I always think for that kind of price bracket, it's making some of the finest value fine wines in the world.
I hear your South Africa and I agree, but I also raise you Chile.
Yes.
Because I think Chile, just bubbling under £20. Take something like a Syrah from Chile, which your connoisseur friends may not know is actually a wonderful emerging style. But I'd go at it that way rather than trying to compete with the classic regions.
No, I think, quite right. Alternative, the same grapes in alternative regions, and then off the beaten track as well. So it's kind of two paths you can go down. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Great.
And don't go to Chianti.
No, don't.
No, or Barolo.
Although I love Chianti and I love Barolo.
You've only got 20 quid.
Oh, okay. Okay, and what about bubbles and champagne? What competes with champagne?
So you're not going to impress a champagne connoisseur at under £20. It's going to be a cheap supermarket one, albeit it might be a nice one. It's not going to impress. I would say premium Prosecco. I mean, some of the top Prosecco producers, Cremant, the fizz that's made in the champagne method, but in other regions of France. And actually, can I just say 3 cheers for really good quality Cava, because when Cava's good, it's very, very good.
No, I'd agree. And I'm going to add one more to you there, which is South Africa. MCC, Method Cap Classique.
Cap Classique
from South Africa. And you don't see an awful lot of them around, but there's some beautiful ones.
They're lovely, yeah. So
really.
there are lots of options. It does not have to be champagne.
Yeah, brilliant. Great, thank you. So I often get asked about storing wine at home. In a professional environment, we have all the kit, the temperature-controlled cellars and indeed wine fridges to store our wine in, which is perfect. But at home, we need to come up with some good compromises of how we're going to keep wine. The first thing is that wine doesn't like extremes of temperature. So trying to find a coolish place that is at a reasonably constant temperature to keep your wine in is a really good thing. I often see people putting wine on the top of their fridge. This is pretty much one of the worst places to keep your wine because you've got the heat coming up from the back of the fridge, starts to bake the wine. So a coolish temperature and importantly a constant temperature is a good thing. And you also, if someone gives you a really special bottle of wine, you just want to think about, if you're going to be keeping that in your home for 6 to 8 months, the longer you keep it in those temperatures, which aren't perfect, the more likely you are to damage the wine. A wine that's sitting around for 2 to 3 weeks in your house, which is frankly how most of us are storing our wine at home, is absolutely fine. So it's really just those kind of special bottles that you really need to think about, that kind of cool, dark place that you can find to keep your bottles in.
Now, what's the best way to chill wines for a big party? Perennial problem.
Big party. Ice and lots of ice, I think.
But you know what I mean. The fridge is full. What on earth do we do with it? It's getting warmer and warmer. Nobody wants to drink warm white, particularly warm fizz. What are your solutions?
So I use quite a lot, like big kind of plastic tubs. So they're almost, I don't know if you have them for those gardenings, those kind of round tubs that you can use for gardening with a little.
As long as you've cleaned them.
Handle. You clean them, no gardening stuff in them, but they're great because you can stack up 3 or 4 of them. They're pretty inexpensive. Put the wine in first, because if you put all the ice in first and then you try and get all the wine in, it's actually quite difficult. It won't get through the ice.
Yeah.
Put the wine that you want to do in first. Ideally, if you're chilling white or rosé, obviously. Don't leave it out in the sun for an hour beforehand. Try and find a coolish place in your house because obviously you're just going to melt all the ice.
Yeah.
Put it all in there, ice on top, and that'll usually be fine. If you want to chill it really quickly and you've done it a little bit late, if you put a little bit of water in, that kind of creates that surface, that contact.
Yes, I mean, it has to be said this will probably ruin the labels. But we're talking about a big bash here. No one's being precious about their fine claret. We just want cold fizz, pink and white.
Yeah.
I mean, my solutions are so obvious.
Yeah.
But, if you've got a balcony, if you've got a back door, it's a chilly night, put the bottles outside. Like you say, start cool, and then ice them down further. Yeah. But don't keep them by the oven where you're cooking, so that you end up with jammy wines before you've even tried to cool them.
And ice. I'm sort of joking around with ice. I mean, I'm lucky. I work in a restaurant environment. We can ring up and someone brings us ice when we have a big party, and it's equally in London. It's quite easy to nip out, but you don't need big bags of ice. I mean, what I do at home in the freezer is just you'll get old ice cream tubs or Tupperwares, fill them up with water, and then you get these. I call them icebergs of ice, big great lumps of ice, which are going to take longer to melt. Put them in there, bit of water, put your bottles in.
That's a really good idea. Seriously, I've never come across that one before. But I know the principle of bigger ice cubes in, say, cocktails, because they don't melt as quickly. So big ice blocks in your gardening tubs.
Yeah, off you go. And then you don't have to worry about buying bags and bags of ice in plastic and all that. I hate throwing away plastic bags.
So there you go. Put the wines on the balcony outside the back door.
Yeah.
Then bring them in and put them in your special tubs of ice blocks.
Ice blocks, off you go. Yeah.
So what about reds? That's a very hot topic of recent years. Do you chill your red wines?
I do. The temperature for red wines is a big bugbear of mine. I think pretty much no red wine should be served above 19, 20 degrees. And we're talking about parties here. I know it's the middle of winter now, but a lot of the time it's parties outside in the garden in the summer. And broadly, it's quite often it's going to be over 19 or 20 degrees, in which case your red wine is going to be too warm.
You don't want a jammy, nasty red. Yeah.
Particularly those heavier reds, you just notice the alcohol more. They become, they just become really heavy and quite hard to drink. I mean, it's something we actually pay a huge amount of attention to in our restaurants, because if you serve red wine too warm, people drink way less, and it means I'm losing a sale. So actually serving it at the right temperature,
they're more refreshing.
They're more refreshing. Exactly.
I mean, I have to say that mostly the reds that I chill are the lighter, tannier, fruity ones, not so much the tannic ones, but that's a matter of taste perhaps. But certainly those light reds, I think they need to be chilled, especially in hot weather.
No, I'd agree. And it's often a question, we're talking about, you've got your ice buckets out there with your white and your rosé in. I think it's just a question of sticking them in there for 30 minutes or something beforehand.
Yeah.
And, just tasting wine and managing it.
Now, you're going to show us the red now.
I am.
The red that lots of people have got prepared, but this is not one that you've chilled.
No chilling. No chilling for this. Okay. This is definitely not a chiller. I'm going to take these away, bring us some new glasses. There we go.
Thank you. Another cork for you to extract.
Another cork for me to. I'm not going to use my foil cutter this time.
Okay.
I'm going to use the knife.
So tell us what you've chosen.
So I've got a Spanish wine, so one from Humilia, so sort of southern eastern Spain.
Hot Spain.
Yeah, hot Spain. And I've chosen this because, this is a reason. I don't know if you remember when we first tasted these wines, but we all loved them. And they make a variety of different wines there, and they are an estate, Bodega Cedron, which is Cedron, which is, I think, really redefining what can be done in this region. Because this region, historically, I'm sure you remember the first wines that, I remember tasting these wines in the kind of 90s, and you'd pull a cork on them, and they would be inky black and
they
dark.
were really big beasts, weren't
absolutely.
they? That needed taming, and terrible headache if you drank too much of them. I mean, this is 20 years ago, as you say, and it's this sort of part, these bits of Spain now that people may not have heard of, certainly not as readily as, say, Rioja, which are now doing much, much more interesting, elegant things with their wines.
No, and I read a piece from the winemaker here who had a very nice discussion with Victoria, and one of his quotes, which really struck me, was he gave these wines. He started making this style of wine, which is a much more elegant style of wine. By the way, this is made from the Monastral grape, Mourvèdre in France, most famously in Bandol down in southern France, where again it can make those really kind of big styles of wine. Anyway, he wanted to make these much more elegant styles of wine, and there was a lovely story of him giving it to his grandfather, and his grandfather went, well, this is not new. This is what we always used to do.
Oh, so it was.
And it's,
it was the period in between.
It's this sort of fashion suddenly that we all wanted these massive, heavy wines.
So now we're back to balance.
Going back to old, basically.
So how does he set about making it in a lighter, more elegant style?
So you'll see the alcohol in this 14, which I know still sounds quite high. The previous vintage was actually under 14. So just picking the grapes a little bit earlier, because traditionally these wines easily get up 14 and a half, 15. Picking the grapes a little bit earlier, and then the way that you're making it, using less. I mean, again, we're not going to get too sort of technical in our wine geek here, but extraction. So the way that you get colour in the skins, as you know, leaving the skins with the juice of the grapes, so just being a bit gentler with that, and
not pummeling it.
Not so. I sort of had to say, I always describe it as squeezing the tea bag out, trying to get it,
coaxing the flavour out of those grape skins, not actually pummeling them, bullying them into it.
And I just love this style of wine. You know me, and you know my taste. I love wines that have fruit, but I also love wines that have what I call savoury and spice.
I know you do. Yeah, it's a bit of smoke.
And this is just a kind of. It's a wild wine, this, I think, but in a good way. Really great for this time of year. I mean, you're starting to just again. We're not going to decant this, but I can just feel it kind of opening up even with that 30 seconds in the glass.
And is those autumnal scents, so blackberries, forest fruits, all that kind of almost a bit of, dare I say, dank sort of hedgerow in a good way.
It's a kind of almost a rusticity to it, but a good element. It's a very, very, very honest expression of a very wild area, I think.
Yeah, and actually on the finish, it does lift. And I think, yes, in the past, very clumsy Spanish and very clumsy red wines from anywhere, they just went into kind of jam on the finish, oak and jam. That couldn't be less like that. It lifts into a little bit of black cherry, and it's not refreshing like the Riesling, obviously, but it's still making my mouth water. It's balanced.
Absolutely beautifully balanced. Quite sort of, tannins that are there, but are quite sort of soft and powdery. And I just think are really, those are previous styles of wine. I think were those styles of wine that were kind of, you drink a glass of it and you go, wow, that's absolutely amazing, and it's kind of really impactful. But actually, this is the wine you could quite often drink half a bottle of with some food and still be enjoying it and feel refreshed afterwards. I think it's a really, really
there was
smart
certainly there's an issue with what we call show wines, wines that do brilliantly in awards because they're so big that the judges are wowed. But actually, would you want to drink much of it?
No,
probably not. I definitely want to drink several glasses of that.
And
I mean, glorious.
And what do you? I mean, I love this. I mean, it's a great wine. Obviously, I think you could drink that on its own. It's soft enough. It's not. But for me, it's a really great food wine. Have you got any thoughts on what you might pair it with?
I'm immediately thinking of sort of peppery charcuterie, salami, chorizo, that sort of thing. Meat and peppered steak. To state the obvious. I love the way it's evolving in the glass because there's a plumminess that's creeping into it now, a red plum, which I didn't get at the beginning. I love the way wines do that. They just start to change and evolve while they're in the glass. But I think spicy meats. What about you?
Yeah, I think that slightly sort of wild side to it, I think, would be good with something braised. So all those sort of an autumnal stew. I mean, nothing too sort of crazily heavy, but some braised pork or something like that. Maybe even with some chorizo or something like that in it. But something slow cooked, because I think it's got this real depth of flavour to stand up to that kind of cooking. But then this freshness to kind of offset those rich.
Yeah. No, as you say, I think you could have it on its own because it's not big and clumsy. Maybe with just some nice bits of cheese to pick on. I mean. Yeah. Sometimes the nicest thing to do with a good red wine is just to have a few bits of cheese.
And, I know, changing subject completely, we were talking earlier about, taking a wine to impress someone on your £20 budget for someone who's into their classics. I think this is a really great example of that because it's it's got a classicism to it, but it's from an area that lots of people are not going to have heard of before.
It's cool, and well done, Grandad. He had it right.
He had it right,
and
exactly.
now it's been brought back round to being right again. Yeah. Well, good for them. And Southeast Spain, something this graceful from such a hot area. Yeah. That's rare.
It's very impressive.
Well done.
Good. Glad you enjoyed it.
I like it.
So you have some sparkling wine left over. I know it doesn't often happen in this household, but you do. I'm going to show you what to do with it. Before I show you what you can do with it, I'm going to show you what not to do with it. Urban myth. Teaspoon, doesn't matter if it's silver, in the top of the bottle. I'm afraid that is not going to do anything. It looks nice, but it's not going to keep the fizz or your wine fresh. What you need is one of these, which is a very simple sparkling wine stopper. Bottle on the surface, you get your stopper, push it down gently, and then you'll click that into place, and it's now sealed. Now what this is doing is it's keeping the fizz in your bottle. You've already let oxygen in there, so the wine is going to continue to deteriorate, frankly, because it has oxygen in there. But by putting that stopper on, you're resealing it, and you're keeping the fizz. People often ask me, how long is it going to last? And I'm afraid there isn't a hard and fast answer to that. This bottle is going to last a little bit longer because you can see it's got about 3/4, 2/3 of the liquid still in the bottle. If it only had a glass or so left in it, it's going to last less time. And it's also down to how the wine is made. So what we call the traditional method sparkling wines like this, the Cava or a Champagne, tend to keep their fizz a little bit longer than, say, a Prosecco might do. It also depends on the age of the wine. So I think kind of 2 to 3 days is a good rule. Anything longer than that, and you'll certainly notice the wine has lost some of its fizz. The other important bit is obviously to put it back in the fridge as well. That's going to help preserve the fizz. So top on, back in the fridge, and then ready to have a glass again the next night.
So, another question here. I always panic, says this questioner, and order the second cheapest bottle on the list when we go out to eat. Do you have any advice on navigating restaurant wine lists? And this is definitely a question for you because you've been working on just that for decades.
Yes, I hope I can answer this question. Something I've always been involved in. Look, I think the first thing is that nowadays it's really easy to plan ahead. Mm-hmm. You can look at a restaurant's website, and most good restaurants will have their wine list on there, and you're at least going to get a sense of what style of the wine list is going to be, what the pricing structure is.
So even before you've set out, rather than leafing through this great thing, you've already sat in the at your desk, if you like, and thought about it.
I have, because I'm a complete wine geek, and my wife
it's a
gets
good tip.
really annoyed because I'm sitting there looking at a wine list for hours. But I just think it gives you that comfort. And you can get yourself a bit of, you can pick out the 4 or 5 wines that you might know, have heard of, and just get that kind of confidence. So that's number one. Number two, I think, is ask for help. I think, there's a bit of we still have a bit of a thing about sommeliers are there to or the waiter is there to upsell you and
to intimidate
you, and that's just gone. Most people who are working in restaurants are there because they love it.
I totally agree. This is their job. Make them do their work.
And they
ask them.
Could not be happier to talk to you about wine.
They should be happy. If they're not a good sommelier.
Exactly. So ask for advice. Yeah. I think a third kind of slightly insider tip. You see it because I know you eat out a lot as well, that restaurant by the glass selections have really, really improved over the years. So you could easily go to a restaurant and find that there's 12 wines by the glass, and they're a great place because most, again, sommeliers or waiters will give you a small taste of that because the bottle's open. It's no skin off their nose to just bring you a little bit to the table, and then you can taste the wine before you've ordered it, and happy days.
Agree more. Yeah, absolutely.
You've got that choice already. So those would be my top 3 tips, and probably the last thing, which is a negative tip, is, if you just order the classics, you will be paying the most for your wine.
So classics being Bordeaux, Burgundy,
Pinot Grigio, Champagne, Chablis,
New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
New Zealand Sauvignon. I'm afraid we all know that those are the default for everyone to order, and so we mark them up the most.
Really?
Yes.
Prosecco?
Prosecco, probably not so much. Not so much, but I've seen pretty unscrupulous people because I know what wine costs, and yes, Prosecco again is a thing that a slightly unscrupulous record just knows they're going to sell loads of. So
get off the beaten track.
Exactly.
Ask the sommelier to help you.
Yep.
Or best of all, swat up before you've even left the house.
Yes, have 3 or 4 things in your head that you can just, because that engages straight away with the sommelier. It's like, I know what I'm talking about because I've had a look. These are the 3 ones I'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and lastly, have a good idea what you want to spend as well, because it's very easy to get
awkward. Sometimes awkward with
just
guests.
Be honest. So I want a bottle of wine for X, and go away and find me something good at that price.
Assertive, confident restaurant goers.
There you go. I can see our last question.
Another question. Now, this is interesting. I've noticed, says someone, that the alcohol level of my favourite wines has been creeping up. I recently bought a bottle of red that was over 15%. Why is this? And is there anything I can do other than drink less of it?
I'll do the why is this, definitely. And I think the readers hit the nail on the head that I think most of the culprits in this area are red wine. And why is it? I think it's for 2 reasons. Firstly, stylistically, people have been responding to what they think people want. And I think particularly, certainly a decade ago, the market felt that people wanted fruitier styles of wine.
Bigger, bolder styles.
Yeah, and to get that fruit and that power of flavour, you've got to leave the grapes on the vine longer. Leaving them on the vine longer means more sugar, therefore more sugar to turn to alcohol. So some of it is that stylistic choice that obviously now, as we discussed in the wine red we tasted, is people reining it back in. But the other thing we need to acknowledge is climate change.
It's climate change. Wines are being produced in areas that are getting hotter, more heat, more sugar. More sugar turns to more alcohol. But absolutely. Solutions are there. So wines from cooler climate regions. So German reds, for example, English reds, which are finally getting there now. Beaujolais sometimes. I mean, that's a lighter style generally. So look towards the slightly cooler areas, New Zealand perhaps, for your red wines, rather than those very, very hot climates. And then with other styles of wine, we've already had our lovely Riesling at 10.5%. But again, cooler climate. There are plenty of whites now at around 11% coming out of England, for example. Top tips from you there? Yeah,
I'd agree. I think sticking to styles or areas of wine that naturally produce wine at lower ABVs. We haven't talked about sparkling wine, but champagne is always at 12.5%.
And Prosecco.
We should just drink champagne the whole time.
Prosecco more like 11%. and more affordable.
And more, exactly. And the classic German Rieslings from the Mosel, 7.5%, 8.5%. So, I prefer to drink those styles which are naturally at that alcohol level, rather than people trying to sort of manipulate them. The Vinho Verde, I think, is another.
Vinho Verde, northern Portugal. Lovely, cool climate, 10 to 12 degrees alcohol. So go for those cool climates. And of course, we now know there are some decent alternatives to wine altogether. de-alcoholized wine with very low alcohol, but that's more artificial. But they are out there.
Yeah, and I also like to drink the other alternatives, like, you know, sparkling tea. I mean, I drink quite a lot of low alcohol beer as well, actually. You know, if you want something, again, I prefer to drink something that's naturally like that rather than necessarily has had all the alcohol taken out.
So for the person that asked the question, yes, we understand the problem, but there are plenty of alternatives. Go cool.
Go cool. I think that's a good place to finish this evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed the wines we've chosen from the Telegraph wine cellar this evening. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as well, Susie.
Thank you for inviting me into your lovely home.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful wines. Cheers.
Cheers.